Lucas Brennan didn't say much that morning. He grabbed his worn-out backpack, zipped up his hoodie, and stepped onto the bus like it was any other Thursday. But his mother, Rachel, had a feeling. Something quiet and unsettling, like the house itself held its breath the moment he left. She'd learned to hate that feeling. The field trip was nothing special. A routine hike through Grey Pine National Park, an annual science tradition for the juniors at East Mill High. Teachers checked off names, chaperones carried clipboards, and 42 students rolled their eyes at the idea of collecting rock samples. By sunset, there were only 41. Lucas was the last kid you'd expect to vanish. Not because he stood out, but because he didn't. He wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't the kind of boy who made loud entrances or broke the rules. He was the kid who drew in the margins, who took pictures of insects no one else noticed, who got straight A's and barely said a word. No one even realized he was missing until the bus started back toward town. His seat, third from the back, left side, was empty. The panic spread quickly. One student, Jason Marks, remembered seeing Lucas step off the main trail near a small, shadowed cave just past the ridge. He said Lucas had been drawing something. Maybe a strange rock, maybe a bird, I don't know. He looked distracted. That cave became ground zero for a massive search. Helicopters flew in. Search teams canvassed the woods. Bloodhounds picked up a scent, then lost it. Divers searched water pockets. Rangers marked every step. Nothing. No shoes, no bag, no sign of a struggle. Just silence. If your child disappeared into the woods and the world gave up after a week, how long would you keep looking? Rachel didn't stop. She pitched a tent at the trailhead. She showed up at the ranger station every morning with coffee and questions. She taped flyers to stop signs and knocked on doors long after neighbors stopped answering. She became that woman, the one who waited when no one else did. In the months that followed, Lucas's name left the headlines. Rumors filled the void. Some said he ran away, others whispered about caves and creatures and things no one could prove. But Rachel never believed he left her. Something happened that day. Something no one could explain. The park eventually closed off that trail. Unsafe terrain, they said. But Rachel never stopped visiting it. Every year on the anniversary, she left a lantern at the mouth of the cave. Always the same message written on the glass in fading red ink. I'm still here, Lucas. Come, home. For 31 years, nothing changed. Until the storm. A violent September rain caused a rock slide deep in the restricted part of Grey Pine. Days later, 2 teenage boys snuck past the barriers, curious and reckless. They stumbled into a cavern sealed off since the early 90s, collapsed, untouched. What they found made one of them vomit on the spot. There, scratched into the wall with what looked like fingernails, were 4 words. Lucas Brennan was here. The discovery sent shockwaves through Grey Pine Park, but no one was prepared for what happened next. Rachel Brennan had spent 31 years in a quiet kind of hell, waiting for answers that never came. When the news of the boys finding Lucas's name in the cave reached her, she didn't know how to feel. It was as though time had frozen in place. She rushed to the site, where investigators and rangers had already set up their equipment, combing through the now open cave entrance. The sight of it, the jagged, damp walls, the narrow passageway that seemed to go on forever, was haunting. Lucas had to have been there. The scratches on the stone, the desperate way the name had been carved, there was no mistaking it. But why had he been there? Rachel pushed past the crowd, barely able to contain the surge of emotions. Her heart pounded in her chest, her breathing shallow, as if every step took her closer to the truth and further away from the son she once knew. A park ranger stepped toward her, his expression somber. "Mrs. Brennan," he said, voice soft, "we've examined the cave and we found something else. There's a journal." Rachel's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. A journal? Could it be his? after all these years. They led her inside the cave, where a small team of researchers had gathered around a rock formation, carefully unwrapping an old weathered book. It was thick and bound in leather, its edges worn, the pages yellowed with age. Her hands trembled as she took it. It was Lucas's handwriting, without a doubt. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. "I don't know how long I'll be here. I'm running out of time, but I need to write this down. They told me I'd be safe, but they lied. I'm trapped." The pages were filled with fragments of thoughts, brief sentences, a few desperate pleas written over days, maybe weeks. Lucas had been trapped in this cave, and what's worse, it seemed as if he wasn't alone. They keep saying they'll let me go, but they're not. I think they're watching. Every time I close my eyes, I hear them. Rachel's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, her mind racing. Who did this to him?" she asked aloud, her voice trembling. A voice from behind her startled her. "We don't know yet," the ranger replied. "Ranger, but there's more. We found these." He handed her a few old photographs, grainy black and white images that had clearly been taken a long time ago. In one, there was Lucas, standing at the edge of the cave, his face almost hidden in shadow. Behind him, a group of figures stood, faces blurred, bodies indistinct. They were watching him. Rachel's heart skipped a beat. "I need to know everything," she whispered, clutching the journal close to her chest. "Where are the others? Who were they?" Rachel sat on the ground of the cave, the journal clutched tightly in her hands, her mind reeling with the discovery. How could this be real? How had Lucas, her son, the boy she had raised and loved, ended up here, trapped in a dark and lonely cave with these strangers? And more importantly, why? The photographs were unsettling. Lucas's face half hidden in shadows, the eerie presence of the figures behind him. She couldn't make out any details, but the way they stood, almost like sentinels watching him, made her skin crawl. Who were they? And why did Lucas never mention them? Rachel had spent 31 years questioning everything she thought she knew about her son. He had been quiet, yes, but not to the point where he would keep something so dark and significant to himself. The police, along with a team of experts, continued their investigation. They mapped out the cave, trying to understand the path Lucas might have taken, where he might have stayed, and whether there had been others in the area all those years ago. They examined every crevice, every inch of stone, looking for clues that could explain how Lucas came to be there, and more importantly, why he had been left behind. Days passed, and still, the answers remained elusive. The cave was too vast, too treacherous. Every corner held mystery but no solutions. Yet there was one thing that kept gnawing at Rachel's mind. The one sentence Lucas had written again and again in the journal. They said I'd be safe, but they lied. Who had said that? Who had promised him safety and then abandoned him? The investigation uncovered something shocking. An old, long-forgotten government program that had been active around the time Lucas disappeared. It was called Project Pathfinders, a covert initiative designed to send troubled teens into isolated areas for survival training and personal growth. The program had been shrouded in secrecy, and its existence was only uncovered in recently declassified documents. Rachel's breath caught in her throat as the pieces of the puzzle began to come together. Had Lucas been part of this program? Had he been sent into the wilderness, into that cave, under the guise of an educational trip, only to be abandoned by the very people who were supposed to protect him? She was furious. But there was no time for anger now. She had to find out what happened to her son. She had to know who was responsible for keeping him hidden for so many years. A breakthrough came when one of the lead investigators found an old map of Grey Pine Park. It wasn't marked with the typical trail routes or tourist locations. This map had hidden sections, areas that had been off-limits to the public for decades, areas where no one was allowed to enter, not even park rangers. And right on the map was a small circle, the cave. It was labeled simply, "No entry, top secret." Rachel's blood ran cold. What had Lucas stumbled into all those years ago? What had he discovered in that cave that had kept him there, all alone? Her hand shook as she unfolded the map, tracing the route she knew he must have taken. She had to know what was behind this. Who was behind this? With a renewed sense of purpose, Rachel enlisted the help of the authorities, and they began searching deeper into the restricted areas marked on the map. There was a hidden facility not far from the cave, an abandoned research station that had been used by the government for decades. Could it have been connected to Lucas's disappearance? But even as they dug deeper, one chilling question loomed over them all. Was Lucas still alive? The search grew more urgent. After weeks of combing through the woods, digging into the murky depths of Grapine Park's secrets, the authorities finally uncovered something. Something that Rachel Brennan could hardly bear to look at. It was an underground facility, hidden beneath the earth, concealed from the public eye for decades, located deep in the woods, just a few miles from where Lucas's name had been carved into the cave's stone walls. The building had been abandoned. For years, its purpose a mystery, but one thing was certain. It was connected to the program Rachel had uncovered, Project Pathfinders. When the doors were forced open, the air inside was musty, thick with the scent of neglect and decay. It was a lab, a research station, filled with outdated equipment and files scattered across the floor, documents, photos, and taped recordings. Among the debris was a single rusted file cabinet, and inside it an unmarked folder with the words "Classified Pathfinders Program, Case 43" scribbled across the front. Rachel's heart pounded as she opened it. Inside, she found Lucas's name. But it wasn't just a name. It was an entire dossier detailing his participation in the government program that had operated in secrecy. Lucas had been chosen not for his troubled behavior, as she'd been led to believe all those years ago, but for something else, something even darker. He was part of an experimental survival program designed to test the limits of human endurance. According to the documents, the teens selected for the program were deliberately placed in remote, hostile environments to see how they would react to isolation. But Lucas had been different. Something about him had set him apart from the others. His sensitivity to the environment, his connection to nature, these were qualities the program's leaders had hoped to exploit. The documents also revealed something else, something Rachel had never imagined. Lucas had escaped. For years, they thought he was gone, but he hadn't left. They had left him behind. The final pages of the file contained a shocking revelation. On the last day of the program, Lucas had stumbled upon something hidden deep within the cave, an ancient artifact, something they had been searching for all along. It was a stone tablet, etched with symbols that no one had been able to decode, and Lucas had taken it. It was that act, his discovery, that had led to his abandonment. They thought he was dead. They assumed the isolation would break him. But Lucas had been alive all these years, trapped in the cave, drawing in his journal and scratching his name into the wall. The truth was too much for Rachel to process. She had spent decades believing her son had simply vanished, that he had run away or was taken by something inexplicable. But now she understood the truth. They had left him. The very people who were supposed to protect him had betrayed him, and they had hidden the truth for decades, covering up their experiments, erasing the evidence, and letting her live in a nightmare of uncertainty. But the final blow came when they discovered the last piece of the puzzle. In the final corners of the underground facility, hidden behind a false wall, They found a video, a grainy black and white recording from the night Lucas had disappeared. In the video, Lucas stood at the mouth of the cave, holding the stone tablet in his hands. He looked directly at the camera, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. He spoke in a trembling voice, words that would be etched into Rachel's heart forever. "I'm sorry, Mum. I tried to get home. They told me they'd let me go, but they lied. I'm still here." The video cut off abruptly, leaving behind an unbearable silence. Lucas Brennan had been alive all along. The final truth was agonizing. The government had abandoned him in that cave, not because of the experiment, but because he had uncovered something they weren't ready to reveal. Something hidden in that cave, buried in its ancient walls, that was far more valuable and dangerous than any of them had ever known. What do you think about the truth Lucas uncovered? Do you believe there's more to the story that we still haven't discovered? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, follow, and share. This mystery is far from over, and more shocking revelations may be on the way. Stay tuned for what's